Hi all, this is Skate, and before I get into this video, I want to share a personal story. Now, obviously I am British, and I grew up around a lot of people who were in the armed forces. I had an uncle who was a staff sergeant, I had an uncle who was a pathfinder, and I had a granddad, and truth, everyone had a granddad, but my granddad was in the army. He was in the armed forces. I have no idea what he did in the army. I would love to find out one day, actually. But my first memory of a tank is around 8-9 years old, and I got to sit on the turret on top of this tank with my granddad while it went around an army base. Obviously it was at some form of reunion. I was quite young, but there's one thing I remember about it. Well, a couple of things. One thing that sticks in my head vividly is if you don't have your shoes on tight and you accidentally catch it on something, you're going to lose your shoe off the back of a tank. And they won't stop said tank to retrieve some kid's shoe. So you have to wait, and you have to, something which does stick in your head, wait around with one shoe on, until somebody retrieves your shoe for you. All very stupid, I'm well aware, and probably wondering how this links to a Chieftain video. Well, possibly obvious, but the tank in question was a Chieftain. Now, my grandfather died about a year after that, and that was around 20 years ago. So you can kind of see where my interest in tanks has naturally developed from. On top of that, I have a fond memory of this thing. It's the first one I ever saw, and it's a British legend. And it was a fantastic tank, except for the engine. But we won't get into that, because that's a very long, separate story. But yeah, this tank I have a very fond memory of, and for that exact reason, I wanted this tank in this game more than any other tank ever. Since I started playing this game. This is to the point where I have already got, in the Conqueror, enough XP, except maybe a little bit, to get this tank as soon as it became available. And it's been like that in my Conqueror for about a year, or coming up to a year. That's how much I was prepared waiting for this tank. So imagine my disappointment when I found out this wasn't going in the tech tree. This is gonna be in a crate. When I was in Minsk, I spoke to the developers, and they went, yes, I can confirm in 2018 a Chieftain will be arriving. And of course, I freaked out, over the moon happy. Several months later, they shared a picture as a teaser of the tank, even more excited, and then about an hour after that, I read it wasn't going in the tech tree. Bloody furious, needless to say. I thought it was a joke. It is a joke. But I can't change it. I have to just deal with that. But here's the thing, I've been playing Blitz since 2014. I would regularly just put a small thing in, or I'd buy a tank nearly every single month. After Blitz Fair in December 2017, I was done with the gambling. If anyone wants to know why, feel free to go back and check that video. But I was like, no, I'm not buying anything unless I can actually buy it, not buying the risk of it. So T-34-3, I let that one go, didn't even chance or spend any money on it. K-91, didn't spend any money on it. 121B, didn't spend any money on it. I wanted all of them as well. And of course the AMX, the 1ER, the most recent one, the Proto. All of these tanks I really wanted, but I'm not gambling. Of course, then the Chieftain came out on Friday this week. And because of what the tank means to me, I had to at least try. I mean, for me, it's a tank I wanted more than any other, ever. Period. Full stop. It's I just really needed this damn thing. And so, on Friday, when this thing became available, I was in work. And I sat there for about an hour thinking, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And this is the first time I've got involved in the crate side of things. And I've gone, do you know what? Screw it. I'm going to have one go. I've spent nothing on Blitz this year. I'm going to try. So, this is recorded on my phone using the Apple screen recording software, which is why it's so damn appalling. I sat in my car basically recording this, but I had to record it to show you guys how it went rather than just screenshotting it. Hence, we're using the appalling quality video right now for this. So, 5 containers bought, first one to open. I had 1,200 gold, 250,000 credits, and boosters. I hate boosters. 1,400 and boosters, and some form of premium time. Didn't really pay too much attention to it. Crate number 3, Chieftain Mk6, and then boosters and premium time. So there we have it. In my third crate, I got the Chieftain. Now, if anyone remembers my Blitz Fair video, oh, I was not happy. So yeah, for me, I spent 14,000 gold on those 5 crates. And within them, I got the Chieftain Mk6, and I had 5,400 gold. Which means, really, I only paid 8,600 for the tank. And then I went straight to look at the camo, and I had to have it. It looks great. I don't care what anyone says. It's got a bit of that British clown camo feel to the colouring. And it's not overdone in terms of the colours. They're not vibrant, really. They're quite pale. They're made to look worn, and it makes it slightly understated considering how what colours there are. And then, of course, there's the Union Jack flag on top. So when I first saw the Union Jack, I was very concerned that it was going to be ridiculously tacky camo and thus ruined. But personally, I like it. Hence the hat to have it. Now, I am well aware how lucky I was to get this on my third crate. I know a fair few people who got it in their first 5, but I also know a fair few people who didn't get it at all. I know one guy who opened 31 chests and did not get it. Yet when he opened 32, he got it. When he opened 33, he got it. And when he opened 34, he got it. Now that's a joke if you ask me. And so crates. I mean, I've said in every single video I've done on a tank which is coming out in a chest, I've still reviewed it, except K91, for you guys, because, well, I'm asked to do it a lot. But I do state in that video, I want this tank, it's a good tank, I'm not going to get crates. This, the Chieftain Mk6, was the one that broke me and made me go, right, I'm gonna try once. And I did. I got super lucky, and naturally I was very, very happy with that. But the reality still stands. You can buy your way to tier 10. Sometimes it could cost you a shed ton of money, or sometimes you could get super lucky and get it in your first crate. But you could buy your way into tier 10. And it puts a beautiful machine behind a paywall. And I just wish this was a tech tree tank, where it deserves to be, where anyone deserves the opportunity to grind up and get it. Oh, it's such a nice tank. I just wish everyone could have one. But, to forewarn, here's how my first 10 games went in this tank. 6, I got lucky and got masteries. 7, I received abuse. I kid you not. 7 out of 10 games, I received pure abuse. I actually hit the point where I went, do you know what? I don't care. I'm happy I got the tank. I wish there was different circumstances to this tank being available, but there isn't. I flat out said in every single one of my last videos on a crate tank, I want this tank. I am what you would refer to as a tank collector. I'm not going to get it. I'm not even going to try. This was the one for me which I just went, nah, I'm going to try. And that's probably because of what it means to me. It's just a tank. But on a personal level, well, there's something there. So for me, it's the opportunity to drive this thing around on the game on a regular basis. And I haven't stopped playing it, guys. I mean, I literally cannot stop playing it. It's like a damn drug for me. It's one of those things, though, because I know so many people are annoyed at me getting the tank. It's one of those things that you kind of go, I kind of feel a bit dirty for buying this. But then after a while, you kind of go, screw it. I don't care. Right. Enough on crates, enough on that. Let's talk about the actual tank. Why do I like this so much? Because it kind of sums up British tanks perfectly. And yeah, there is a bit of British bias involved for me. I think that's glaringly obvious. But aside from the British bias in me, it is a damn good tank. It's got fantastic DPM. Once you've got your rammer on this thing, your reload is down to 7.6 seconds, which gives you 3,157 damage per minute. That's firing your 400 alpha APCR shells. You do have premium APCR in this as well, but you've also got HESH, which means things like grills, you can tear apart waffles, sides of light tanks, fronts of light tanks, rears of a lot of medium tanks, flat sides of a lot of medium tanks. You can literally tear them apart. Because when you're using HESH with 110mm of penetration, you've got 4,065 damage per minute. That's a very tasty number, and it's very intimidating to something like a grill. But then you need to combine that with the fact that this thing has very, very good gun handling in terms of aim time, in terms of accuracy. It's very British. It's damn good, the gun on this thing. But then you slap 10 degrees of gun depression on that gun and slap it into a turret with 350mm of frontal armor. Put it on a ridge and it's very hard to move, and it's not really a tank you want to rush in that circumstance either, because by rushing this thing with the DPM it has means it'll make a mess of you in the time it takes to rush it. So ideally you want to rush it in a pack if it is on a ridge. Somebody will take the heat, but it means a couple of other tanks can get in and deal with it at the same time, because once it's not on a ridge, I actually think it's very weak. Or rather, the hull's very weak. It's very easy to penetrate. But with that game, we died. But before we died, we did 5,894 damage. And we nearly made 100,000 credits in a tier 10 tank. That is the best credits I have ever seen from a tier 10 tank. In fact, if you look at the last replay, which I just played as well, we made nearly 60,000 credits in that one as well. You don't make anything like that in the M60, and you don't make anything like that in the 121B, but you can quite comfortably and confidently make credits in this tank. Not to the same level as what a proper premium tank at tier 8 will do, but you'll still make credits in this thing. Which, when you're in a tier 10 vehicle, that's a little bit bemusing. But I was going on about the hull before that. The hull on this thing is an easy pen. The lower plate is a ridiculously easy pen. In fact, Death Stars can pen it with HESH all day long. On top of that, your hull's only got 51 on the sides, so just above the tracks is also a very, very easy pen. In fact, a very good 268 player came rocking up next to me in one of my games and slapped a HE shell directly into the side of me for over 1,000 damage. The rear has only 25, so everything at tier 10 can penetrate it with HE in the rear. If you do get penetrated frontally in the hull, another real big weak spot of this tank is the ammo racks. I say ammo racks because it seems wherever you get penetrated, if you get penetrated through the turret, or you get penetrated through the lower plate, they're going to hit an ammo rack. It goes a lot in this tank. And then so does the driver and the gunner. So if you just want to take one of these things out, it is a case of trying to get around it and work those sides and work the rear. Now it is a very, very mobile tank, so if a couple of you can do it at once, then this thing has absolutely no hope in hell. If it's on a ridge, you're really going to struggle to penetrate it. You have got a weak spot right on top of the turret on the hatch, but it is a fairly small hatch, all things considered. And premium ammo can go through the turret on this in certain places. Now in reality, this thing is a successor of the Centurions. And you've got the very similar playstyle, except this does it 10 times better than a Centurion. It's got a much better turret. It's got probably around the same mobility, and obviously a gun that just sings. I mean, we're going to work some HESH into the back of this T-57. Now, I've pulled back to relocate because I was going to get swarmed where I was, and you could see this T-57 flanking. So my idea here was to relocate, which you can do very quickly in this tank, and basically try and work it from another side because they were attacking and pushing. They're now all going to rush and attack the IS-8 on my team, so I'm going to do everything I can to help him and address it. But in the most sensible way I can, which is hiding my hull. Every single time I'm reloaded, I am going to come out and assist the guy as best I can. But we are in a 3-on-6. Make that now a 3-on-3 situation, a 3-on-2 situation, and a 3-on-1 situation. That changed very, very quickly. So, no idea where the enemy Waffle is. He's just gone off the map, but he was in the corner, so I've got no idea which way he's going. I'm going to assume he's going to be coming at me from the back, because then I'm in a pincer scenario. I tried to put a Hesh into the M103 just to try and do some damage. It did a lot more than I expected, actually, but it didn't finish him off, and he did manage to put one into me. And the Waffle's just giving himself away, and his gun is lower than the top of his tank, and the Hesh on this thing and the gun on this thing is damn accurate, which means a very quick, easy finish. And I think I'm virtually a one-shot, and they are one-shots for me. So they need to push me together realistically, which is what they're doing. But ideally, in an ideal world, if you could communicate, you'd say one from either side, which isn't what happened. So I do manage to finish off the M103, and now the T-57's rushing me, but because of how good the reload on this thing is, it means we could get and deal with him quickly. In fact, I don't think he was expecting our reload to be that good. Now, if I was in a tank which didn't have a good reload, and I was in a tank which didn't have good accuracy, I don't think I would have survived that, because I would have taken a lot longer trying to aim that initial shot on the Waffle. But the end result, that is 4,076 damage, 80,000 credits, mastery, scout, patrol duty, and Kolobanovs. And we kind of deserved those scout and patrol duty, in my opinion, and you'll see why on the next screen, because we have a lot of spotting and assistance damage. So to go with that 4,000 damage, we spotted 6, and we have 2,612 assistance damage, which is usually from spotting and tracking. We got hit 10 times, of which 5 penetrated and 5 did not. All in all, though, I think a very fun game, and I like the fact that we could get that assistance in terms of spotting. Obviously it wasn't directly intentional. My idea was to get to a stronghold position for the tank, i.e. by that little ridge where I could just try and hide as much of the hull as I could. But then most of the team went that way, which means we lit them up as they kept popping out from around the buildings, and anytime they got shot at is because we spotted them. But yeah, although this is designated as a heavy tank, you kind of end up treating it like a big, nasty medium. And rolling with mediums, because by rolling with the mediums, your armor is much more reliable. And your penetration is a damn sight better, so you can outdo most mediums, in fact all mediums at tier 10, because you've got 260 mil of penetration. And you have that rock hard turret to go with it, and your gun depression, and you have DPM to rival the medium tanks. So rolling with the meds in one of these things makes this thing devastating. On top of that, when you're rolling with the meds against enemy meds, well, you're also putting yourself in a situation where you can use your Hesh, and by using your Hesh, you get really high damage rolls in comparison, and as we've already mentioned, average of 4,000 DPM. Yeah, it's only with 110 mil of penetration, but that's a lot more than even something like an Object 268 has with their HE. So the Hesh on this thing is to die for, is probably the simplest way of putting it. That's if you hit the target anyway. I blatantly missed that by a long shot. And this one, I love watching these shells fly up into the sky. I didn't do any damage because it ricocheted, but wash. I don't know why. I like seeing the shells go up like that. I think it's funny. But yeah, you'll see I'm trying to keep my tank in this hull down scenario. I'm coming up every single time I need to reload, or once I'm in a reload situation, I'm popping out of the top. but keeping the tank in this situation where it's very, very strong on this ridge. It's ridiculously strong on this ridge. Yeah, there's a couple of little weak spots on the turret, but really, it's really good in this position. And now I need to turn around and deal with, well, they're on both sides of us now. I can either help this guy or I can try and deal with the flank and help them. Ideally, I have to help this side, otherwise we are going to fall on both sides. Now that was my high damage roll with the HE, but it didn't penetrate and it still did 300 damage. That one did penetrate and did 517, which is only just above the average damage roll. And then again, we can just use the Hesh one more time. You'd be surprised how often you can actually use that Hesh. And obviously I've mentioned this in previous videos, my favourite heavy tank is the FV215B because of how nice that gun is. Add that lovely gun to this chassis basically, and I'm in my element. This is exactly what I want from a tank, in every shape or form. Although one forewarning has to go out. Wargaming have put that little disclaimer at the bottom saying they can adjust this tank. So although it's technically a premium, it's not by their standards. It's an enriched vehicle, not a premium. But that means that they're allowed the ability to nerf it as they see fit, even though you've spent money trying to get the thing. So that needs to go out as a big caveat, that if they think this thing is a little bit too overcooked or it ends up performing a bit too well, there's a high probability we can see it slapped with the Nerf bat. Which I imagine is going to make even more controversy because some people have spent an absolute fortune trying to get this thing. So you imagine those people who have spent excess of a couple of hundred trying to get this thing, because the problem you've got is once you're about, say, 10-15 crates, and you haven't got the tank, you kind of feel like it's a waste until you get the tank, so you end up getting more, and thus the gambling addiction begins. Because if you get the 10 crates and you don't get it, you feel stupidly disappointed, and I know that feeling far too well from that stupid winter fair. But then if you keep going and then you get it, in your head you can almost kind of justify it, and that is why crates make the money they do. Although my personal standpoint still stands. I would like tier 10 tanks to be tech tree tanks, and I would like tier 8 premiums to be available in the store. You can choose at that point whether you want the tank or not. And at least you're getting what you pay for it, rather than you decide I want this tank and you go for it and not end up getting it. End result, that last game though, we did 5,951 damage. I don't have premium on this time, and I still made 51,000 credits after everything was paid for. But that is it for this video. I think to sum it up, it is a fantastic tank. I'm biased, I'm well aware of that. My story at the start confirms my bias. But aside from that, it is very, very good. Whether you should go out and get one, I can't tell you. Same with every other crate tank video I've done. It's worth a certain figure. That figure of how much a tank is worth is up to you. Except for the fact of you don't know in this circumstance how much that figure is, even if you'd say, yeah, I'd spend £80 on that, or something like that. You won't know until you've got it. You could get it first time, or 20th. Or even more. But what I will say is I've seen more of these things round the battlefield than I have any other crate tank. So I think this one was ridiculously popular. For very obvious reasons. It's the Chieftain. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.